The Life to Legacy Explained free virtual series brought to you in part by the Chip Reverse Mortgage by Home Equity Bank.
Mike Drack is an author, public speaker, and recognized authority on retirement. Welcome, Mike.
My pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining me. So I have a question. What prompted you to write Longevity, Lifestyle by Design, which I actually have a copy of here. So what prompted you to write this book?
Well, it's like a form of therapy for me. I struggled with retirement. I failed at it, and that really surprised me, and I struggled for the longest time. And really, I ended up writing 3 books, and they were a form of journaling for me, trying to figure things out. And I came up with the idea because I want to prevent, what happened to me happening for other people. So I decided to write the book and tell them about my experiences, what I learned about retirement, some of the things that you should do. And I knew it's such a big problem. That's when I decided to give it away for free. My wife wasn't happy about that. She couldn't understand it. But
I can understand it.
I thought it was important to give back and help others. So that's the reason.
When I think of my own parents, because I know you have 4 different retirement personas, but I think of my own parents. So when my dad retired, so he worked at a mill for 40 years, which is a hard labor job. He was out on the Fraser River on a tugboat. Like, he was so happy to retire, and he was so good to just be sitting at home watching court TV every day. He was good. When my mom retired, she had worked at a bank for about 30 years. She kind of hated it at first because there's nothing to do, and then you have dad who's happy just staying home and hanging out with the cat, but mom wants to go out and do things. So you have these 2 different types of retirement personas, and now I think in my parents' generation you weren't always proactively planning. You were just getting to that end point of, okay, now I retire, but not necessarily thinking about how you're going to work through that. So can you speak a little bit to the 4 retirement personas that are in your book, and then maybe we can touch on how can those retirement personas work together if they're a couple and have a different view of what retirement could look like?
Well, just like the story you told me, it's a problem because we're seeing divorce rates increase dramatically for the retirees. And what's causing that is, one of the main things is you're dealing with 2 different types of retirees. Right. So one type is comfort-oriented retirees. They want to retire and just take it easy and live a simple life and not be stressed out over things. And, that's good enough for them. Maybe just work in the garden or something, but they just want to stick around the home. And then you could have the spouse would be a growth-oriented retiree. Maybe they want to grow and learn new things, experience new things, travel to different countries in the world, and learn all these things and enjoy life that way. Maybe they want to go to the community center and take up ballroom dancing. Yet the husband doesn't want anything to do with it.
He never wanted to ballroom dance.
Never.
Certainly not in his retirement
You're going to have
years.
to drag him there. And that's when the conflicts arise.
Right.
And that's why it's important to understand the different types of retirees and try to accommodate your partner. To say, I understand why you need to do this. I understand why it drives you. And I'm going to try to compromise and make that happen for you, but you have to understand what my needs are too and accommodate those too. So, because you don't want to get divorced late in life because it will destroy you both emotionally and financially, and it's hard to recover from. And it's sad to see that when it happens. Another type of retirees, we refer to them as angels. They're givers. They have a very strong need to give back to the community and help others. And when they can't find a way of doing that, it really bothers them. It can affect them physically and mentally, and they're going to be miserable because they can't do it unless they find a new way of doing that. And then there's another type where it's a combination of growth plus a giver. They give, through giving, they grow and support their communities. And, it's very interesting to see these different types. And it makes the lifestyle design process that much easier when you know what type of retiree you are and what your needs are. A lot of people, what I learned, I couldn't understand why I struggled in retirement. And it wasn't a money issue. I had enough money to retire comfortably. It was something else. And I did a lot of research. It took me about 3 years to review everything, and I got caught up in Maslow and the hierarchy of needs and all that. And then I finally figured it out. It was because of the work I was no longer doing. that was the root of my problem. And it's funny because no one can relate to how you feel. They automatically assume, why can't this person be happy? Because they don't have to work anymore. And the reason I was unhappy was because I wasn't working anymore. And it comes down to finding a way to satisfy your fundamental needs. We all have the same fundamental needs. These are needs we're born with. And they never go away, even in retirement. You always have these needs. And the only difference in individuals is the relative strength of some of these needs will be stronger than others. And what satisfied these needs in the past was the work we did. And when the work's taken away or we decide to retire, we need to find a new way to satisfy these needs.
You're sort of losing your purpose in a
Our
sense.
purpose,
Yes.
we're losing connection, we're losing significance, all these important needs of ours. And purpose is a big one too.
And so which retirement persona are you? And I guess you sort of had to go through that journey to figure out, like, this is who I am. So which one?
Good question.
Which one do you fall under?
I'm both growth and a giver.
Right.
And it's funny because I've changed recently. I guess as I get older now, it's almost turned into a legacy play where I'm spending a lot of time trying to help people, giving free seminars, writing a free book, and giving it away to everyone just to help them. So it's a change in life because before that was a pursuit for money to take care of my family. And that was my big purpose. But when things changed, I had to find another outlet. But yeah, giving plays a big role in my life.
It's almost like reframing the discussion on legacy. And I talk to my husband about this sometimes. I'm like, I know it's important for us to leave a legacy, but I don't know what that means. Because sometimes I sit in my house and I look around and I think, there's gonna be another family living in this house 20, well, maybe not 20 years from now, I'm not that old, maybe like 50, 100 years from now, and they're going to be living their life and loving their life, but it'll be like, I never existed. So like that legacy piece to me is so interesting. And so I think like what I'm hearing you say is like, we can leave our legacy as we're still here, and our legacy can be the work that we're doing in our retirement years.
Sure.
And it's fine if no one remembers who I am 100 years from now and is using my bedroom and my bathroom and had no idea that I used to be in there. So that legacy piece is so interesting to me. So what tips or advice would you give to someone who's now embarking on retirement is like, okay, what is my legacy and how can I start leaving that?
Well, legacy to me was how much money can I leave to my kids, right? And
I'm going to spend it all. I don't want to leave anything
well,
to them. They better take care of them. I don't know why I would leave it to them.
I lived a frugal lifestyle, and they're going to go out and buy a new car or something like that and have a great time. And really, it's changed because what I want to do is be a good role model for my kids and show how we can give back and help others and help solve some societal problems and things like that. That's the key to it. That's the key to a happy life. So I'm trying to teach them and also help them at the same time while I'm still alive. Everyone's struggling these days with inflation and things like that. So if I can help them out that way too, it makes me really feel good. And I'm doing it while I'm alive.
I like that. You're my retirement role model.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So in your book, you mentioned 6 longevity drivers. So I wanted to dive into them. So we kind of already talked about health with Dr. Wiz, but I want to talk about relationships. So even now, and I think this might resonate with a lot of people, if I have plans with someone and those plans get canceled, I'm honestly ecstatic because that means I get to now stay home and not leave my home, so that to me is exciting, and then it worries me because I'm like, I'm 40, so if I'm excited about staying home now, like, I don't know if it's gonna get better. I don't know if I'm gonna be more inclined to want to leave my house after 7 p.m., which is terrifying. It's terrifying out there. So how do we maintain these relationships as we age and perhaps aren't as motivated to leave the house and go out into the big, scary world?
Well, I'm glad you brought this point up because relationships is a key longevity driver. And social isolation is, it can increase mortality risk up to 40%, which is unbelievable when you think about it. And it's a bigger health concern than obesity, high blood pressure, drinking, or eating improperly.
So I just want to repeat that. So social isolation can increase your mortality risk by 40%.
Right.
Like that's substantial.
So it's key. And when you think about older people, they tend to isolate themselves over time, which is really bad. Story about my mother. When my father passed away from pancreatic cancer at age 72, someone put the bug in my mother's ear to sell the house right away and move into a high-rise condo. And I remember she called me up and told me she was planning on doing that. And I said, hold off. Let me come over and let's talk this thing through, because it's a big decision. It's going to impact the rest of your life and affect your quality of life too. So I went over and I started talking to her, and I said, Mom, where do all your friends live? And she says, well, I got a friend living on the right side of my house. I have another, friend on the left side. I have another friend, she's a widower. She lives right across the street. And I got other friends up the street. And I said, wow, that's interesting. And I said, okay, where do you go shopping? Where do you do your grocery shopping? Oh, Loblaws just down the end of the street. Hey, great. Where do you do your banking? Well, the bank's right beside Loblaws. Wonderful. I said, and where's your church? Well, she says it's close. I had a short bus ride. I'm there. And she used to go every Sunday. And I said, well, why would you want to give all that up? Mm-hmm. Because these are the people that make you happy. These are the people that you enjoy being together with, right? And I'll never forget, she said, because who's going to cut my lawn? Who's going to shovel the snow? And she said, you can't do it all the time. And I said, no, that's fine. We can just hire someone to do that. That's just the money problem. She goes, that's fine for you to say, but I don't have a lot of money. She had no clue, because my father did all the banking, did the investments and whatnot.
Right.
And I said, I'll never forget, I looked at her and I said, Mom, you have all kinds of money. You have this house here, it's free and clear. You can tap into that for any kind of money that you need to pay for all these things to get done. And she kind of looked at me, she was amazed. Next day she phoned me back and says, Mike, I'm not moving anymore. And I know if she would have moved into a high-rise condo, it would have been far different, where she didn't know anyone. Mm-hmm. And she had the happiest life staying in that house for the next 15 years, right? And it's just those decisions, you have to think it through. And yeah, you need these people around you, because, connection and love is so important. It keeps you going. It gives you a reason to live. Yeah, and we all need that.
It's so true. And we will talk about purpose a little bit down the line, but and I hope my father's not watching this, but if he is, I apologize in advance, Dad. But I did find with retirement, he got a little grumpier.
Oh, yeah.
And grouchier. Sure. And it's like, we want to, and I'm trying to extend grace and understand, because I'm also getting grouchier, so I understand that it's probably going to get much worse for me as well in terms of, but how do we maintain that positive attitude? Because it's also, like, I don't know where the grouchiness or the grumpiness comes from. And so how do we help those who we love to stay positive as they age? And what is some of the pieces that maybe are making us less positive, except for the fact that if you just turn on your TV and see what's happening in the world, you want to jump out of a window?
The answer is, the answer is it comes back to their fundamental needs again.
Right.
Your father had some needs that weren't being met in retirement, mm-hmm. and that made him grouchy. It made him upset and miserable. And you see this a lot. You see people that have a lot of money, and yet they're miserable in retirement because they can't connect to what they need to do. And, some of these needs are a community again, giving back, a need for significance, a need for a sense of achievement and accomplishment. Right. These needs that they need to be fed. And if you ignore them, it's going to cost you. And that's why you get miserable. And that's really what drives retirement shock. And it's such a big thing. I read a story about it the other day, and it was a real sad one. It was written by a financial planner about his father. His father had run a successful business out west in a small town. It was a tile business. He was known as the tile guy. If you wanted tile, he was the guy you would go see. And his father was fit. He would swim 80 lengths at the pool 3 times a week. He was a scratch golfer, and he was a black belt in karate. And he had everything going for him. And at age 58, he sold his business. And he celebrated by going on a 2-month trip to Asia. Then he came back and he played golf most days until one day he didn't feel like golfing anymore. And then, you know, he didn't feel like swimming anymore. He didn't feel like working out anymore. He didn't feel like doing anything. He was miserable.
Yeah.
And the sad thing about it is one night his son received a call from the police department, and they told him his father had committed suicide. He jumped off the bridge in town. Wow. And that really hit home because, you know, I suffered from retirement shock. My father did. I had a good friend kill himself. He drank himself to death because he was isolating himself. And the sad fact is 1 in 3 retirees will suffer from clinical depression. It's just amazing when you think about it. Yet it's something we don't talk about.
Right.
And so that's why we need to dig in and find out, you know, how to solve that problem and do the right things to make sure that that doesn't happen to people. And that's why I give away the book.
I'm going to give a copy to my parents after we cut out the piece about the grouchiness, and then
Yes.
I'll send them the link as well. So shh, don't tell them that I said that. You spoke a little bit about when you spoke to your mom about the house and how the house is free and clear, which is amazing. Like that's sort of what we all aspire. Even when I think of my sort of investment portfolio, it's, you know, having a house is something that I'm looking to maybe, you know, sell as I'm retired so that I have some money. Or not sell, because that's not, you said don't sell your house. So there is a way of tapping into your home and having that financial security so that you can enjoy your retired years. So could you talk a little bit about that financial piece? Because you did say, I had the money I needed to retire, but I was still not where I needed to be with retirement, but that financial piece is still important. So.
Well, yeah, it's important to have financial security because you don't want to lose sleep at night worrying about if you're going to be able to make next month's rent payment or you're going to outlive your savings and things like that. It's very important to know your options. And what I do is I help people design lifestyles. Mm-hmm. And what we do is it's a process, and it's described in the book, it's a 9-step process. And really what we want to do is we want them to create a lifestyle that meets their fundamental needs, that matches up well with their values and their wants in retirement within the constraints of the retirement cash flow. And so we design a lifestyle and we test it out, make sure it works for them. We come up with a couple of different scenarios and make sure there's no lifestyle traps involved in it, in the design. And then what we do is we cost it out to the last penny. And so, for example, say your lifestyle is going to cost you $80,000 after tax. It's very easy to go to your planner and say, okay, I need $80,000 after tax. Do I have the money? And hopefully he comes back and says, you do.
Right.
Or many times they'll say, no, you don't. So then we think about it and we say, okay, can we cut some cost out of that lifestyle? Or are there other things we can do? Can we work part-time and generate some extra income? Can we downsize and generate some cash that way? Or can we take a reverse mortgage out on our house to help support any cash flow shortfalls going forward? So it's about knowing what your options are and figuring out the best path for yourself. And a lot of people aren't aware of it. Like my mother, she didn't know, but thankfully her son was a banker, and I could talk to her about things like that.
And I think that's also an important piece of advice. Like if you are in a relationship and one person in that relationship is managing all the finances, it should be a responsibility of that couple to ensure that the other person knows how the finances work.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, life is life, and you never know when you could lose someone. And then all of us, I had a friend the other day say to me, you know, I haven't been to the bank in probably 20 years. And so I wouldn't even know what to do. And that's a really scary position to be in. So I think that's a good piece of advice.
No, that's a great point, and it's a huge risk because for whatever reason, normally the men take care of the investments and the banking. It's like a division of duties. So you separate the duties, and that tends to fall there.
Yeah.
The risk is, odds are, the man's going to die before his spouse. And then she's going to be left holding the bag. And if she's not involved in it, if she's not meeting with the financial advisor, or she's not involved with knowing where the investments are, or many times you see, a husband will pass away, and there's a wild scramble for missing passwords and
Yep.
documentation,
Yeah.
and no one knows where it is.
Which bank is the account at?
Exactly.
Like,
Or
there's so
where's the
many
safety deposit
questions.
box? I
Yeah.
didn't know he had one. He didn't tell me. And yeah, these are important things that you need to cover off.
Yeah, no, I think it's something that it's definitely made me think a lot more as I age, about the whole financial piece. But this was it was a very fulsome discussion, and I've learned a lot about sort of my own retirement planning. I'm hoping to retire next year. That would be my goal.
Nothing
That's
wrong
my
with that.
goal.
But I would say keep working part-time.
Okay, I'll do that just because Mike said so. So thank you so much, Mike. I do want to let everyone know, if you go to www.chip.ca/carp, you can download a copy of Mike's book for free, and I will be definitely taking this home. So thank you so much for sharing some time with me this morning.
My pleasure, Natasha.
Thank you.